Good morning, good evening, and welcome. Every single session of Ikigai with Jennifer Shinkai, I screw up my opening. I'm so excited, always with my guests. Oh, well, maybe I need to go and have some presentation skills training, which is ironic because it's been a while since I've done presentation skills training delivering. So maybe it's time to get back into it. But yes, it's Ikigai with Jennifer Shinkai. I am here with a great guest, the wonderful, the one, the only, Henry Seals. Welcome. Welcome. Yay.
Thank you, Jennifer.
And I have known of you, Henry, in the Japan community, foreigners here and there, although you're not a foreigner anymore because you're a naturalized Japanese citizen. And I was watching, as part of my research, your interview on Black in Japan, the Melanated Files, where you talk all about that process. So if people want to find out about that process, there's so much great information that Henry shared about why he made this decision. And we may or may not get into it today. We have some other interesting topics to talk about, right, which may not been covered in your other interviews. But I met you, Henry, so I've known of you. And then last year, I was doing some work for the company that you're working for now. And you came up in a couple of the workshops. So we were talking about like how to deal with life in lockdown and working from home and feeling connected. And I think that was where we first got connected. Yes. And then, came across in some other projects with some of your colleagues. And then I was following you on LinkedIn in a stalkerish way, and I saw that you had become the Human Rights Commissioner in Japan, and I thought, wow, that's
why?
Why? Like, obviously, like that's something we'll talk about
Japan,
today.
Of all places, right? Yeah.
But how brilliant, and also, thinking about in this podcast, I'm really trying to find people who have got interesting lives, they're making really interesting different decisions, and to give lots of examples, lots of different ways that Ikigai can show up. And I think that you're going to be a great guest with so many things to share. How are we going to get it into like 45, 50 minutes? I don't know.
We'll figure it out.
But
we'll figure it out together.
Why don't we start with this big question? Sure. So right now for you, how would you define your Ikigai?
Okay. I guess my Ikigai is, and it's evolved, as I guess, obviously, these things evolve over time. And mine is really about alleviating pain. And I don't mean it in the short term, like you want someone to be happy for the moment or you want everything to go well for someone. But I've learned that people who are suffering sort of lead to others suffering. And so as an HR person, or as a coach, as a parent, as a partner, or, for someone, the easier I can get them on a road to where they don't feel pain consistently, where they feel like they're, the world's adding to them rather than taking away, they produce, good, right, for themselves and for the people around them. I think a healthy mind helps produce other healthier minds. And so right now I'm really, really committed to that because I see the results. I see it in myself and I see it in others. And so finding interesting ways of doing that and helping people, finding methods I can give to them and say, here's a method, and they can take it and run with it on their own. That's really my excitement. That gets me up in the morning.
Right. So alleviating pain. That's so generous of you.
Well, I mean, it's self-serving at the end of the day. I don't want to leave you thinking like somehow like I don't know, Mother Teresa is the right example. Like I'm trying out there to cure people. It's that by doing so, my life is better. Right. The life of other people is just better. I mean, there's a self-interest here. Like, for instance, living in Japan for almost 30 years now, I know that if my Japanese countrymen and women, right, or my people who live in my neighborhood, if they feel a little better about their place in the world, they feel a little more confident, a little less afraid, then they're not going to fear me. Right. They're not going to be reactionary when they hear about, they see, like today I gave a talk at an middle school,
right,
for like Human Rights Week, sort of delayed, but I was speaking at the school. And I said to them, one of the things I'm trying to do is normalize a face like mine helping you. You know what I mean? So by doing that, I help myself, I help my family, I help other people. So it's self-serving, but I've learned that I've learned that it works, and it makes me feel good to do it too.
Yeah. I love that. And there's a concept, an assessment called the Ikigai Nine, and it has these 9 different questions. It was started by some Japanese researchers, recently been translated into English and validated in English. And some of the questions are very much about like somebody needs me, or like connections to the outer world, to outer society. I'm there for someone. It's important that I exist. And so I feel that coming through in this idea of alleviating other people's pain.
Right. I think it makes me feel important at the end of the day too. It makes me feel like I'm serving a purpose. And I think that's what keeps people excited. If you feel that there's purpose, like in your relationship, then you'll get up early and maybe make breakfast for your partner, or wash the dishes, or do that extra mile at work because you feel recognized. A lot of times, I mean, you probably know this, people working at the office, they'll say sometimes they don't feel like they get recognition for the work they do. And of course, recognition can take various different forms, but at the end of the day, recognition is really, really important to people.
Yeah.
So for me, I think I do get recognition out of what I've done, the stuff I do. And I think that helps, keeps me motivated.
Right, it does. And tell us, I don't know where to go on this next question. There's too many. So hang on, let me change my question and say, of all the different ways that your Ikigai shows up in your life, which one would you like to talk about first?
Okay, well, I'd like to talk about the fact that I'm the father of 5 from 3 separate marriages, right? Yeah. I'm presently in the third. I'm enjoying it tremendously. But, that aspect of my life that I don't talk about much because people don't ask me can sort of appear contrary, right, to this idea of alleviating pain. It can also be something that can take away from your Ikigai. It can be, anyone who's been through a divorce or had that specter over them knows how much it can take from you spiritually, mentally, financially, emotionally, everything. And so talking about it in the context of, how did it apply to my relationships? The ones that, didn't last until forever, so to speak, as far as like death do you part type of thing. That to me is a fascinating topic. Particularly, it involves Japan, culture, my own point of view on the world, and maybe we can talk about that.
Yes, I would love to talk about that, especially because we have going on right now in Japan. We're recording this just before the start of the Olympics, and French national is on a hunger strike. I think he's on day 6 right now.
Yeah,
and he is in the situation where he's not able to see his children. Japan has a single custody law. And one of the things which comes up in a wider context, when I'm doing Ikigai workshops, and often people are not talking about, should I get divorced? You're right. People is uncomfortable to talk about. They don't want to, they don't want to bring it. But one thing is that our relationships can be such a great source of Ikigai. It isn't just about what's happening in the workplace. Definitely, like those family connections can be super important to make us feel that there's a reason to be here.
Yeah.
So, with this going on in the background, but people are scared.
They're very scared.
Yeah, people are scared to take that step to what do I lose, right?
Right. Yeah.
But what do you gain? How did you move sort of through some of that? The fear,
Really well. So the fear. So I met my first wife when I was a student, and I was here, 20 years old. I was a student. I met her here, and just long story short, I didn't really understand. And even my wife now is a different culture. She's Jamaican. I'm American, and so there's still this international cultural sort of difference between us that's very fundamental, and probably wider than, let's say, between a Japanese and American, because to others we look the same, the same color. So people assume there's more in common, and there's not really, except for history of slavery. But anyway, let me get back to the point. So so I didn't take into account just how fundamentally different we were going to behave and see the world, right? And the world changes you, but the world changes you based on, let's say, how you were brought up, right? How you were raised, and so the change is going to affect you differently. And I was feeling hurt in my relationship with her, honestly. And I think she was feeling that way towards me. We're feeling hurt. And I believe that I was feeling this pain and this resentment inside of me. And I know that this pain and resentment, because I've seen my own parents get divorced, and I've seen bullies in school. And I started to make the connection that when you're feeling pain and resentful, you're going to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. You just do it. you're bad, you feel bad, so you hurt someone else. It's unconscious, and if people didn't do it, the world would be a different place. So I can't consider myself different from other people. So I felt this coming, and I said, I didn't think at the time we could work it out. I don't think it was something we could work out. My issues were such that I didn't think I could work it out, and I'm not sure about her. But either way, I looked at it and said, if we don't get divorced, I'm going to send this woman to the crazy farm. I'm going to drive her insane because I'm just too different, and she's going to drive me insane. But I see my parents go through divorce and come out the other side better, right? Not just better individually, but better as a team. They were better parents to me because they were separated. And as distance grew, they became better collaborators in raising us. I had seen this. It's like having faith in a higher being. You just seen it, and it's just what you believe very strongly. And I said, if I can get over this and try to if I can get through this, I think I can make it work. So the problem is, though, to my ex-wife, divorce was the end of a relationship. It was shame, it was failure, it was a bunch of things. So I knew that by telling her I wanted to get a divorce and just trying to push through it and sort of forcing it down her throat, to be honest, I was going to hurt her.
Yeah.
So I knew that in every other thing I did, I had to not hurt her. I had to listen. Now, I failed doing this, but I learned I think we went through like 5 or 6 years of sort of discussions about this divorce thing before we actually got divorced. And going through it, I had to find ways of being kind. In other words, when she was angry, just listening, because it's not about me. It's the divorce. It's the sense of shame. It's the sense of betrayal. It's not me personally she's angry with, right? But you can't help but get angry with someone when they attack you. So it was great practice on just trying to be kind, trying your best. Like, and it wasn't always smooth, but in time we found our own lives. And in time she realized, I have my own life. My ex-husband, there's benefits to him being around, right? Mm-hmm. I think she could see that the children like having me around. And it was hard. There were arguments, all that kind of stuff. But I tell people when they're thinking, I want to get divorced, my wife's bad. I said, look, and I oversimplify it, and I tell them, just love your wife. She's someone's child. She's been socialized a certain way. She is not evil, right? These people aren't evil. They're conditioned to be. Sometimes your wife may be angry at you, but she's not angry with you. She's angry about how she was raised. She's angry about her position in the world. She's angry because maybe she can't get a job as a mother, of 2 children. Yeah. There's a lot of issues that because you're the closest person to them, you're going to receive all that garbage, and vice versa. Yeah. And vice versa. Yeah. So I was sort of inspired by saying, I know this will get better, because I had seen my parents model, and I said, I'm going to work through this. So we've been divorced for, my first wife been divorced. Well, we've been separated for almost 20 years.
Right.
Almost 20 years. And, we get along. We're never going to be the best of friends, but, the kids love us both. We can talk to each other. Certain topics that we'll talk about, we still argue to this day if we talk, but we just sort of, here goes my daughter. I'm in a podcast, baby. So, okay. What do you need to do?
Open the car so I can get my water bottle.
Okay, the key's right there. Go get it, baby. Okay.
Real life, everyone.
Real life, everyone.
Real life in a state of emergency in Tokyo. We're all there.
She needs her water. So, so that was marriage number 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Marriage number 2. Now, marriage number 1, how it ends, I get divorced. We go through like the family, I don't know what you call it, but the chote thing, family court type of thing.
Yeah, it's like
arbitration
yes.
type of thing. Like arbitration. And, I gave her custody of the children, but she didn't take them from me. She didn't run away. The kids were able to visit me. And I think it was a product of, I think most of us know when we had a good boss or a good friend. We'll remember in time because of how they treated us. And I just had faith that the world's going to treat her, or all of us, with no sort of preference, with no sort of, the world's not going to cater to us. And I think that you'll remember when people were kind when they didn't have to.
Right.
Or that someone was honest with you when they didn't have to, when the world's filling you with lies and distractions. So I think that played a part. It still plays a part to this day. I'm thinking, why in the heck hasn't she, beating me up or whatever, given up, what you go through.
Yeah, because so many of those arbitrations for custody in Japan, it's like, so it's a single custody law anyway.
Yes.
And then and never see your children again.
Yes, you see children again. I mean,
and no one's done anything wrong by the
nothing.
law, right? And also, I kind of wonder as well what judgment your wife received from like people in her community going, whoa, why is he still in your life, right? Because that's not the norm.
Yes.
But I really love, like, my takeaway from your first marriage is like, love your wife.
Yeah.
Because
really,
you did love them. And
yes, you did.
And I love what you said, like, there's somebody's child. And there was a reason that you were together, and the fact that it's not working out doesn't mean that you can love them and be divorced. Like,
it gets even, I mean, I could talk about, if we had hours, I would tell you about the nights where I'm sitting there with my friends, mostly men, almost all men at the time, and we're talking about it, and I'm venting my spleen at them, and all those self-help books that talk about, no one can make you feel a certain way, no one can take from you what you don't want to, what you don't let them take from you. That stuff resonates with me, but for real. You know what I mean? What I mean by that is, like, let's say one of the fears, let's be honest, as a man, you fear is that you're going to take all your money from you because you're the man, you're the breadwinner, etc. And I was like, that would be unfair. Not because she doesn't deserve money. I mean, she's the mother of my children. She deserves lots of money, but it's more, at least in my opinion, she does. But it's a case of like being treated unfairly. I was worried about being abused by this system because I wasn't Japanese at the time, and and even if you are Japanese, sometimes as fathers, you don't, you lose on that. And so I thought to myself, well, if I can just focus on, every day I have, I'm working, I have a job, I have friends, associates, I'm making connections, I'm making relationships. If I get so bogged down in this divorce and what it makes me feel, that I get depressed, alcoholic, addicted to drugs, all these type of things, I'm just taking away from my potential to just live a life, because this will pass. Everything ends. Everything ends. So my mother had always taught me, because when I was growing up, I was a little different. I liked reading books, and I was a know-it-all kind of kid, and I didn't understand how that pissed people off, but I was that know-it-all.
I was going to say, this sounds like you're talking about me.
Well, I mean, I was that kid, and my mother, she would say to me, the best revenge when people picking on you is success. And now that can twist people a certain way and say, okay, I'm going to be after money, I'm going to be after this. But what it taught me was that, success sometimes is, I want those friends. I want people to see me and treat me fairly. I want to live a life where I am successful being me. And so when there's a problem, I take it as a personal affront. Like, I'm not going to let it beat me. And I've seen so many divorces. I have friends, Japanese, who've never seen their children after 20 something years, and they let it go. They don't talk about it. They're smoking a cigarette. We talk about it. They just let it go. They've compartmentalized it culturally. I said, I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen. So, yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's you love your partner. The world's not going to love them. They'll learn that. We all learn that. And when someone treats you fairly, you if you're a decent person, you defer to them. You'll try to give them a benefit of the doubt. And so I was scared. I thought I was going to lose my children.
Yeah.
And I had no sort of legal leg to stand on, really. They decided, there's no joint custody, at least at the time there wasn't.
Yeah.
But I remember the people at the whatever the family court said, your kids really love you. And I said, why are you telling me this? Why do you even care about me? Whatever. I don't know why they said it, but it gave me a little bit of hope. I'm like, well, maybe my ex-wife, or my wife at the time, shared this with them. Maybe there's something here. And so I haven't had my children taken from me. And I think it's to her credit. Okay. It's not all me. She's a good person. But I think it's also, even good people do bad things. And so I would think it also has to do with the way I eventually figured out how to relate to people, especially when I'm under stress or, justifiable anger, I guess you'd say, when you're going through something like that. So that was the first time. And you think I learned my lesson, right? No, I didn't. The second time, this is different. Now, my second wife was with me during like most of the end of this first marriage, because my first wife wouldn't divorce me. It's her choice. She's like, I don't want to get divorced. And it took years for her to convince. I'm like, well, I'm moving on. So I was living with my second wife. We were having a family together. And my second wife had seen me go through all of this. And, I'm going through all of this, get divorced, finally getting married. We're living, life is fine. But over the entire period that I've been an adult, I've always started like with social groups, getting people together to share their feelings and thoughts, or maybe get involved in a project, whether it's Tokyo Black Professionals or, you participated in the Legacy Foundation or whatever it is, getting people together to sort of feel positive about, solving problems.
Have their pain alleviated.
Yeah, exactly. Have their feel alleviated and their pain alleviated. And exactly. And so I started doing these groups, and it's my fault in the sense that I want my partner, whoever that person is, to be my partner in these activities for one particular reason. One, when you get around people and you start a group, sometimes you become the leader of that group and people sort of defer to you. I've seen it happen. They're like, you're the boss, or they somehow place upon you like you're a success, right? It can somehow make you feel that you're, as we say, can I curse on this podcast? I shouldn't curse.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. It's fine to curse?
Yeah.
Okay. So after a while, if people keep praising you, you feel like your shit doesn't stink.
Wasn't so bad. I thought you were going to say something much worse.
Well, trust me, I can go worse, but let me just start with that. Right?
Let's keep it like a PG-13-ish.
PG-13, okay. Like you don't smell your own farts, so to speak.
That's
right?
fine. That's fine.
Right, thanks.
Yeah, so right. So you're on this pedestal, right?
You're on this pedestal.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen to so many people.
And you start to believe it about yourself.
Believe it about yourself. Yeah. I mean, we all do that. Like, we all can done that or do that. As a parent, we do it sometimes because we're the parent, right? Our children misbehave and we're like, well, we're the parent, we're in charge. But anyone who's a parent sometimes realizes, I don't know anything. I'm learning from my kids, right? You know what I mean? We all figure that out eventually. But they're our children. We love them. We change ourselves for them. But when you're dealing with people who you may not love, right? Who you just know, you're not challenging yourself. You're not mindful of it or what's going on. So anyway, she wasn't a social person like that. She didn't. And she started to become like one of those people. She could see me doing all of these things that she could never do. And I could see this awe in her deference to me. It was like my friends would say, to them, I'll be real talk here. They were like, this is a stereotypical Japanese woman, right? They're like, in their mind, that fantasy of a Japanese woman who just did everything for her husband and just loves him, right? And that's what they saw from the outside.
Right.
And they're like, why are you unhappy? And I'm like, you don't get it. You don't want someone who's around you who just praises everything about you. You still argue, you're still married, it's not perfect, but that was happening. And I was going to do these social events and I meet all these people and I was feeling like I was somebody. And I didn't have that voice to sort of say, look, I only had my mom and she's on the other side of the ocean.
Yeah.
And I remember telling
she's not walking into the bathroom after you going, Henry.
Like, whoa.
You need to spray. Open the window.
I needed my mama. I needed my mother. I needed someone.
Or you just need someone who's going to tell you, mate, open the window.
That I really trust. Yeah, open the window. It smells in here. And so we had several heart-to-heart talks over a period of about 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, other things happened, but we talked about it. And to her credit, to my credit, whatever, she said, you know what? I think you should probably find a better partner. Not a better partner, another partner. She never used that term. Sorry. Yeah, okay. Another partner. For me, that would be better. And we went to my lawyer, the one he's passed away now, but he helped me with my citizenship process to a degree. And we went to his office, signed the papers in front of him. He witnessed it and we were done. It was that simple. It was that simple. Nice. And she's still a very close friend. She's, auntie to my children here, and our daughter together actually lives in the room next door. She's preparing to go off to school. So we're really close. It works. But I can talk about that in detail. I'll probably write a book about that one. But it's all, I think, it's about that treatment of people. And I've been practicing it for years. Right. And I had a lot at stake in practicing it. So now I realize it's probably one of the reasons I am relatively happy right now. And so I'm just committed to that. It fuels me. So sorry, I went on forever.
No, it's really interesting. I think it ties into this idea of alleviating pain that you said as your Ikigai, because being in a relationship which isn't working, which is bringing more pain than joy. Like, of course, no relationship is perfect. Like, that's just wrong and weird. And as you said, you need someone who can kind of tell you these things of, you were like not a good human when you did whatever it was you just did, right? Like, that's a really important part of the partnership. But to be able to take that step, and actually it's never a step as well. I think there's one thing, people talk about, oh, how can I start to like
steps.
move to, it's steps and steps and steps, and then some steps backwards, and then no steps for, like, as you said, with your first wife, it was like 6-year discussion. Right? People sometimes are like, okay, I've made this decision, I want this to happen, and I want it to happen tomorrow, and it's like, that's not always
happen that way.
Right?
It never happens that way, ever.
Yeah.
And I think that the differentiate, I think also one of the things that was going through my mind at the time, and I think this will also go through people's mind when they're thinking about divorce, or it comes up, or even if it just passes as an idea in their head, is this a reason to divorce, or is this one of those hard times that marriages just go through, right? It's just one of the difficult times. And it could be. Actually, looking back, I'm thinking maybe, it's been 20 something years, I can't remember, maybe, but I've now come to the conclusion, or the concept, that there's about that whole pain thing, is this, when we get through this rough patch, right? Will this person, including myself, let's say my partner, will they be in a position to really live a life free of pain, right? Are they walking their road? Are they living their truth, right? Or are they still going to be in pain, in the context of like resentful at the world? So my first wife, as an example, she had went to I love talking about this. Sorry, if I go on forever. This is the marriage counseling topic, right? But she had went to associate college. Again, this is her generation. When I met her, I said she was working in an office, and she said, she went to 2-year, what is Simon Gakko.
Yep.
And she had intended, she going to college was never something she had been raised to do. She thought, she'd marry a man and she'd be a housewife, and that's just what she's very honest about. She thought, right? The irony of it all is that, first of all, being me, growing up what I saw, I thought to myself, that doesn't sound very cool. I sort of totally disregarded whether this was her decision. In my mind, I was thinking, this is just a Japanese thing. This isn't really what she wants, right? So there was that. She was very good at it. She's very good. She got very good at housekeeping and whatnot. But I did, even after that sort of chauvinistic period, I'm watching her and I'm with her and I'm thinking, this isn't what she wants. I could see it. Like, she had these skills that she'd use in the house that I know she wanted to use outside of the house. It was like counseling people. The strangest people would, and my wife isn't a social butterfly at all, but the strangest, most different type of people would come around her and want to spend time at our home, or we'd babysit their kids. Very non-Japanese things. When I mentioned this to her, that's not very normal. She goes, oh, that just happens. I'm like, no, this is who you are. This is it. And so now she's like a Buddhist monk priest type thing now, leaving me. She joined the Buddhist sect, and she's doing all this. She's counseling people and doing spiritual advisory and all this kind of stuff, right? And it's probably something she wouldn't have done had I said, you know what, let me keep her in here. She probably would have bickered for the last 20 something years. She may have figured it out, who knows? But she's happier now. Right? Not happier. I can't answer. I can't speak for that. She's more fulfilled. She's doing, I can see it when sometimes we'll all go to the temple together. She'll go, will you come to the temple with us for some event? I'm like, sure, I'll go. So it's me and the kids, and we'll go. As recent as last year, we went, and she's happy in that sphere. In that
you can circle. Like see her, just that energy and
energy and like yeah. So
that you can see the Ikigai in her, right? Like that she had it. You observe it in people.
Yeah. So, but if I thought, perhaps we go through some challenges and we come out the other side better, then sure. But I didn't think that was the case. I really didn't. And my second wife the same way. I'd come home from these events where I'm talking like 100 people or traveling or whatnot, and I would need her to sort of like, because I trust her. I still do. I trust her very well. I'm like, can you watch the door? Can you help meet the people? These people are wanting to offer me this job, or these people want to get me involved in this business idea. Can you meet them? So I'd get your feelings on them. And when the sessions would be over, she would be like distraught, like meeting all those people and talking to all those people and having to be social. And just again and again, I said, I feel for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those type of things were happening. I said, no, I'm not going to force this person to change. This person's going to try their best. And I don't know if they're going to be good on the other side of this. So yeah, so that's sort of what happened. So, but it's related to, the pain thing. I mean, I could pretty much put up with pretty much anything, I think, but I'm looking at someone, I'm like, this isn't right for them. And it's not right for me. So figure it out. So
yeah.
Now we can talk about easier stuff.
No, but I feel like some people might be saying, well, how is this relevant to me? I'm not married. I've got no intention of getting married or anything. So what do you tell them?
Okay.
I have my opinion. What do you tell them?
Exactly. So people are married. So let's talk about, first of all, before I close, I'm gonna talk about the guy who's doing his the guy who's doing his hunger strike. I mean, I can't speak about what went on between him and his wife, but it's more than likely he's not the only reason she treated him badly to get away. Now, there's always two sides to a story, right? There's
maybe
always
even more.
Maybe even more, right? But a lot of the times, people are treating you a certain way. Like, a friend who's in a similar situation to this man, but his wife has a mental disability, mental illness, serious mental illness. So the thing, I guess, how it's related is that when you're working or you're at work, for instance, I'm advising people on their career, and they're dealing with a manager or a company where they just don't see eye to eye, and they're like, well, if I just work hard, if I do my best, maybe I'll learn some new skills, maybe to help me step up. And I'm thinking, well, going through all this pain, is this you, right? Is what you're spending all your time towards going to give you something that, not a better salary or a better title, but that fulfillingness that gets you through the hard times? And many times the answer is no. Many times the answer is no, but they're like, well, I have no other choice. Another choice. So how this is related is that, when you're trying to, figure out and live your own truth, it's not as easy as just waking up one morning saying, well, I'm going to get divorced or I'm going to do this. You'd really have to have a network of people around you, a support network of people around you that support you, regardless of what that happens to be. And I think that's why it's really important, the people you keep around you, because sometimes there are people who will feel your pain, feel your anger. Have you ever done this, Jennifer? Have you ever listened to I used to do this a lot. Like when I was really angry, my two favorite songs I would listen to when I was angry was LL Cool J, Mama Said Knock You Out, right?
Okay.
And the Imperial theme from Star Wars, Darth Vader's theme.
Look, this one
Those
I know.
two songs. Very sort of macho, aggressive songs about battle or attack or whatever. I mean, the Imperial March is obviously instrumental. But I listen to both of those songs, right, to fill me up, to fuel my anger.
Fuel your rage.
Feel my rage. But when the songs were over, I didn't feel any better, You know what I mean? There's a sort of fulfilling moment listening to it. Like I'm imagining throwing my boss out of a window or whatever it is. There's that moment when you're in the moment that feels good. But at the end, I'm like, I'm still feeling that negativity. I haven't progressed anywhere.
Right.
I haven't moved forward. Right. So
it's quite intoxicating kind of in that moment of like being angry, especially if you can have righteous anger.
Yes.
Because, how awful this person is. Like, that's very exciting. And I think Sarah Furia.
Yes.
Yeah, so she's my coach, and she introduced me to the idea of the drama triangle. Which is the drama triangle is basically there's a victim, there's an aggressor or a persecutor, and a rescuer.
Right.
And it's Kaplan, I want to say. And there's something that, being like in this, for example, being in the victim situation is, everything's horrible. And then people will come in and be like, oh, Henry, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Yeah, that person sucks. Oh, what an idiot, blah, blah, blah. And then you can have this very exciting role play of hating on this person. But then when this conversation's finished, the person who said, Henry, could you wear a tie at work? So whatever horrible thing they've done to you, I don't know what it is, but that nothing's changed for them. Nothing's changed for you as the victim. Right. And so you've just gone around this triangle of drama, but no work has been done, nothing has been solved. So one of the challenges, like you said, so you can go and you can listen to your angry music or whatever it is, or go out for those drinks with friends who are going to feed that whatever role you need them to do, but you have to get out of it and how do I be the creator? Like, what was the point, right? If what they said was true to any degree, right? What were they very poorly communicated, but what was it they were trying to give me an opportunity to change or to develop, or where have I not quite hit the mark? Like, how can I use this? Right.
So, all we talked about for the last 20 minutes was just for me to sort of explain that even in difficult situations that are incredibly emotional, incredibly stressful, it's, I've spent a lot of time trying to focus on how do we make this better? Yeah. How do we get ourselves forward in a situation that could be very bleak. So in those situations, when I'm sitting with someone, whether it's an employee or a manager or a friend or a colleague or someone who wants some mentoring, it's about equipping them with some tools, right? Really equipping them both emotionally, spiritually, and just literally with tools to help them feel more confident doing something. So, like you mentioned before, in that triangle, you tell someone, you give them, you're helping them sort of, they have a bitch fest, right? Basically, you're
Yeah.
just bitching about someone and they feel okay, but you haven't necessarily given them anything to feel confident about. Okay, let's take a step in one direction.
Yeah.
Right? Not necessarily. Like they're thinking, okay, well, I'm in my righteous anger. I feel right, but okay, I don't have any more leverage to move on from the situation. I don't necessarily have the confidence. You might get ideas from your friend, but the confidence to use whatever new ideas you heard. Right?
Well, it's
You know what
like
I'm
you
saying?
said, though, your friend might be in that situation where they, I not necessarily maliciously, I don't want to paint that we have these awful friends, but
Yeah.
like believe that their role to be helpful to you in that time is to
To do
allow
this.
you to continue to have that vent and bitch fest.
Yes. Right.
Right. And
Mhm.
that's a role that they can play for you.
Right. And I think that that's what, and there's nothing, I think the friend coming in to rescue you, right? Actually, ironic, I had this conversation with my wife the other day because she was talking about someone she was speaking to, a friend she was speaking to. And we always talk about like when you're speaking with someone, you're being empathetic. A part of you is you want to help them. You feel their pain and you want to help them,
Yeah.
right? You want them to know whatever. But a more effective way when you're trying to listen to your friend is to help them feel powerful in the moment, right?
Yeah.
It takes confidence and power to change. You need to feel really confident to change. And that's not saying, yeah, your boss is a butthead. I agree with you. It's like, what can you do so this never happens again? What can you do so that no one makes you feel this way? You know, what do tell me how you feel. And so you're not really leading them, but you're getting them to speak in confident language. You're getting them to visualize the better world, not visualize what they've been going through.
Yeah.
And until
Yeah.
people
Like
can,
what's next?
yeah, until they visualize it, they really can't do it. So you help them visualize. So through several conversations, through that visualization, you can help somebody. So, like, I'll give you an example. When we talk to employees, and I'm talking about where I work now, I'm talking about in the past. Example, first time I had to ask an employee to leave the company, right? I had been transferred to HR. There was this employee that IT wanted to move out. And, I knew him because I'd worked with him in IT before I was HR. And I'm thinking, he's like a nice guy. He's not a high performer, but I don't know what to say to this guy. So I walk in, he's a Japanese fellow. He was in his mid 50s at the time. And I tell him, hey, sorry, your performance, company wants to provide you with this package. What do you think? And he just looks at it and goes, I don't want this. I don't want this. He was very frustrated, very angry. And I said to myself, there's no way I'm going to convince him to take this. I don't know how to do it. So what I did is I looked at it and I put myself in his shoes, at least the best I could. I looked at the money being offered. It was substantial. It was substantial. But in the moment, all he's thinking about is I've lost my job.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm thinking, what could that money do for him? What could he do? And not the money. I said, let me talk about what he would do if he didn't work for us. So that's what I did. I had a conversation. I said, okay, I understand. But, not but. I said, but, we've worked together. I know it's a challenging department. If you didn't work for us, what would you do? He goes, what do you mean? I said, what would, had a conversation. What would you do? What would you do if you had the money to do it and the time? What would it be? And he's like, I would do this and I would do that. And by the end of the hour, I said, just take the offer, think about it, and come back.
Yeah.
Next week, it was on a Friday. So the next Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday, I remember this clearly. It was the first time I did it. It was a big deal to me at the time. And he comes in and he's like, well, I talked to my wife. My wife's like, what would I do at home all the time? Right. So he started visualizing. He had started visualizing the situation. He goes, my wife's not sure. I said, I understand, but how would what could you do to help her, right? And he was just getting him to visualize what life looks like without this burden of the company, which he had defined himself as. Now, if we get into any relation like marriage or we get into your work, you define yourself by that relationship, even though you're not that relationship, you never were. But you define yourself by that. So I'm saying visualize what the world looks like. And then you start visualizing how you get there. And if you visualize it and you believe in it, then all of the effort you put into it isn't as hard. as it could be. It's sort of like when you talk to all these people about their Ikigai, and they're like, they make it sound so simple what they do.
Yeah.
They make it sound like it's just average, and it's not. Everyone is exceptional, right, at something. But the issue they can do it is that they're fortunate enough to sort of figure out what they really believe in. And when you're doing what you really believe in, it doesn't feel as painful as hard work. So the third conversation, the guy eventually took the offer. He signed the letter. He thanked me. And I used that approach again with a foreigner about 3 months later. And he hugged me at the end. He's like, Henry, thank you. And I mean, he and his boss were always fighting. He wanted to sue the company. He was angry, but I spoke to him and just have him visualize, get free of this pain.
Yeah.
And it's like a marriage. Like, you're like, well, my husband treated me this way. He cheated on me. He did this. I'm like, but get away from it. You're not him. Don't define yourself by that idiot or that butt brain, or whatever my mother used the term butt brain. Define yourself by you. Get free of that. And so that's the kind of, so when people are trying something new, right, they really have to visualize. They need people to help them visualize the solution, and not tell them the solution, but help them visualize it, right?
Yeah. And have that bravery again to imagine that, and to imagine what you are worth and what your life could look like. Right. And not be stuck in like, okay, so now my reality is, I've got power harassment from my boss and I'm working all of these awful hours, or whatever it is, which is kind of wrong with your current reality. I think that's sort of one of the difficult things that happens is when people are unhappy and in that reality of whatever type of pain. I love that you've used this word, actually, because it can then apply across any situation. When you're in pain, it's very hard to imagine pleasure.
Very hard to imagine pleasure. And the quickest pleasure you think about is food, things that are unconscious, like food, drink, sex, whatever. These kind of things come to your mind because they're sort of instinctive. And the more difficult sort of pleasures that come through hard work, that come through change. I mean, change is never comfortable, right? We all have to change to be successful, I think. And those things don't come.
Ease, right? Having ease in your life.
A little ease in your life. And, I think you need to surround yourself. And this is where I think I could have benefited from a mentor. Is you need to surround yourself with people who've been through what you've been through to a degree. People who've been on the other side. Right. Because it's like, the example I give to people when I say that, and they're like, what do you mean? I said, well, people who've really been through what you've been through, some of them at least, are going to empathize with you, and they're going to remember how hard it was for them, right? They're going to give of their time because they don't want anyone else to suffer like they suffered. When I first came to Japan, I was really scared that older Japanese people would be racist towards me. I was really scared about that. I've been told Japanese are racist and whatnot. And the kindest Japanese people I've met have been those now they'd be over the age of 80 or so. But the older who had lived through World War II, right? They were the kindest. And my second wife's father, he lost brothers to the bombings, right? They were children. They starved to death, sending the kids out of the cities and whatnot. And I was scared to meet him. I was like, he's going to hate me. I'm going to look like some of these soldiers he had met. And of course. He and his brother, they're still alive. They couldn't have been the kindest. They couldn't have been more kind. They couldn't have been any kinder to me. Right. And never mentioned the war. Never comes up. And the way I've sort of equated this sort of phenomenon that I see is that if you've suffered through war, you've suffered, you've seen what pain can do to people. You don't want anyone to feel that way. Unless the world's broken you and you just want to give your pain away because there's nothing else for you to do. But most of us, we don't want people to feel that way. Yeah. Right. So you want to surround yourself with people like that. That's where the confidence comes from. And I didn't have that. I was just based on faith. I remember calling my father the first time I was one time I was getting divorced. The second time I was introducing my partner, who's my wife now, to my colleagues at work. And one of my colleagues said something to me like, "You're a terrible man." I goes, "You're a terrible father. You're a terrible person." And I'm like, "What?" Right in front of her and right over my colleagues. I'm like, "What are you talking about? What have I done to you?" And he's like, and I'm thinking, and I just left. I was just like, huh? And I remember calling my father and I was crying. I'm a grown man. I was in my 30s. I was calling my father. I said, what? Why do I feel this way? What have I done to this person? Why am I going to have this stigma over me? Like I'm some broken man because how do I handle that? Because it's going to happen again. Yeah. And he said, my father used the F word. He's like, fuck them. He said, they don't have to live your life. I was like, I understand it, but in the moment it hurt. So later on, the next day, it's over the weekend, I was thinking about it, and I said, yeah, how dare he do that to me? And then it became apparent that this person was dealing with his own marriage infidelities. He was cheating on his wife with someone at the office. He was projecting on me what he was going through. And I found this out because I remember asking, my boss was actually in that dinner or whatever. And I said, what's going on? He goes, you know what? He's going through this. And I said, okay. So on Monday, that colleague emails me and texts me, says, look, I want to apologize. I said, look, you don't have to apologize about it. You got your opinion. Thank you very much. But we can have a drink and talk. I said, I don't need to talk about it anymore. I'm good. I realized he's throwing his pain at me.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I've been talking about whether it's marriage or your boss or whatever. People are in pain when they give you pain. It's not about me. You know, if I can get myself out of that situation, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
Or if I can help that person get out of that situation, I'm going to be fine. But come on, if I was going through something, I have no doubt I've treated people badly when I was hurting. So I have some empathy for that. I have a lot of empathy for that. But I have that faith. I've seen people on the other side of it, and I believe most of us can get through it with the right help.
Yeah, and I feel like as well, like it's as maybe a takeaway, another takeaway for me from this is when you are going through these kinds of changes, right? When you're trying to make yourself happier and bring more feelings of purpose and things into your life, that is a challenge to other people to address how they're living their life. So not everyone is going to say, yay, Henry, great divorce, so happy for you. Or yay, Henry, you changed your job, or you did this thing, right? We're not going to talk about it, but like you're, naturalizing as a Japanese citizen, not everyone is going to say, yay, Henry, because they've got some pain about that process for themselves.
Yes.
So I guess the message to listeners is like, be ready.
Right.
Be ready. Some people will be there. So you have to have that support group, because there are going to be haters who are going to be like, something in what you're doing is a mirror to them of something that maybe they are desiring for themselves.
Yes.
But then they're not ready to go there, right? So it's like and it comes to them as a personal affront. So they deal with that pain by saying nasty things to you.
Yeah, and it's like, what is it? All publicity is good publicity. If someone is attacking you for something, you're doing something right. You're challenging them, right? There's something you're doing. If it wasn't an issue, like for instance, people usually shouldn't care what other people do. It really doesn't matter unless you're hurting somebody, but they care for some reason. Like, why do you care, right? So it's them. It's not you. It's somehow they can't let go of something and they attach it to you. Right? Like if someone believes, like someone's racist, for instance, they think, I think colored people or whatever, it's not necessarily you. They have this issue in their head and they connect it to you, right? And then when it doesn't, I've seen this happens to me and growing up in America or even in Japan, when you don't fit that mold that they have of these evil colored people or whatnot, then they're like, okay, there's this cognitive dissonance and they're like, okay, well, you're just different, right? Well, what happens if you meet 2 people, 3, 10 people, and you realize you're wrong, and do you change or not? The issue is that it's not on you to change that person, because it's not you that's causing this person to be this way. You're just, unfortunately, that change in their life that they never expected,
challenge their status quo, challenge their beliefs.
Yeah, and the more support you have on the other side, the more you can weather that. Because if you're living with people or roommate situation, you don't have the money to move, but you need to get away from them, right? I mean, these are real things that prevent you from taking steps, and you have to take your time and make a plan, but you need to surround yourself. That's why I like creating groups, so people can find these groups to get that support, not only to leave. It's not all about leaving. It's about, learning new skills, about challenging yourself to be whatever you wish to be.
Yeah, well, I hope, although we've based most of our conversation today around like relationships and the topic of divorce, I hope that people have the like mental gymnastics to go, this is about marriage, but it's also not about marriage.
Oh, it's definitely not about
marriage. Any of these
no.
things are connected to any time that you want to bring about a change, and there is going to be fear over whatever those like losses are, perceived or not. And also, I think, as you said, right, it's these series of steps. It's not like, overnight, and the answer might not come to you, and maybe you think you have the answer, and then oh no, maybe I shouldn't, and there's lots of back and forth and all of those things, this process. But finding and connecting to those people who are like on the other side. So whether it's you wanted to leave your company, or you want to, start your own business, or you want to become a human rights commissioner, which we didn't talk about at all. So we have to invite you back another time to get into all that. Like there's someone who's done it, and there's someone who can make that process easier for you as well, and who knows, or maybe not knows, because no one's experience is exactly the same, but they have empathy and some level of understanding to support you.
Well, I think if I were connected all together, sort of how people who are, whether you're looking for a job or you're looking to move to another country or something like that, and I talk about my Ikigai as like alleviating that pain, is that, and it keeps me motivated, is when I make a decision on something or do something new, right? Becoming a naturalized citizen or a human rights commissioner, something different. I believe that I'm trying to make the world better for everybody. I'm trying to make the world better, right? And in that situation, people will reject it. People will say, that's not what I want, or I don't get it. And so, but I just said before, and I use the divorce as an example, just I felt that, if you can just try to treat people with respect, okay, I get it. I see where you're coming from, but guess what? This is me. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I think it's going to help you. Sorry you disagree, but thank you. You move on. Is that you wind up providing for people. I just have this belief that it's going to make things better. And so that's kind of like when someone's rejecting you, or someone's like, it's not about them, right? It's about, are you living your best? Are you living your truth? And if the product is good, those people that were naysayers are going to look at it and say, there's something from your success they'll want to take from, they'll want to learn from, so to speak. And I use the big example of the divorce in the beginning because it's so incredible. It seems so incredibly different, but it's not. Yeah. When you work and you want to do something new, you tell your boss, I want to do this, or you tell your company you wish to quit, and they're angry with you. Like, I'm sorry you're upset. I'm sorry. All respect. This is what's true to me. I'll always be good to you. We'll always have France or Casablanca or whatever. And you move on. And if you're successful, then someone say, I worked with that person when, or I knew that person when.
Right.
But it's when you sort of bask in your pain and say, well, these people treated me wrong and I'm going to get back at them. You just leave a trail of fire behind you, around you, everywhere. And that's not going to help you, really. It's not necessarily going to hurt you, but you just leave this destruction in the world. And unfortunately, people feel lots of pain. So my job is to go out there and help these people so they don't burn down the forest. And that makes me excited. It's like this ecological, like coaching ecology. I don't want them to burn all the trees down. So I go out
sustainable living.
Sustainable living. Yeah.
And
so that's the connection there.
Yeah, there's one thing that I want to let everyone know. Actually, if you choose, you can make pain be your Ikigai.
Oh, yes, most definitely.
Like, you can be driven by that, and your reason to be can be to like get back at Frank, or get one up on the Joneses, or to show those people. Like, you can be driven, and your reason for being here is to like bring that person down. That is also an acceptable Ikigai.
Most definitely.
Right? But
it's fine. Yeah, exactly.
And it's fun, and it's there. So, but I guess the point is, you have choice. Is that the way that you want to be driven and shown up in the world? Because if you have a choice, maybe there's another way.
Yeah, if someone wants to burn down the forest, let them. Knock it out. But a lot of people don't, and when they wind up running around in circles, they're like, why did this keep happening to me? And I want to be there if they wish, and help them.
Yeah.
So you don't want to force people to get help who don't want it, but those are open.
Yes.
Let me help you plant some trees.
Right. So if you had a final message, Henry, because we're at the close of our time here, for the listeners of Ikigai with Jennifer Shinkai, what would you tell them?
Well, I think before we recorded, you mentioned something about how do we spend the very little bit of time we have in this world, right? And the funny thing is that the problems you have once you're gone are gone. The problems themselves are gone because you're not here. But what you leave remains, right? what you leave remains. And so when you're caught up in, you're angry or you're lost or you're confused, these problems are solvable either through you finding a solution or you not being there, right? Meaning that the weight you give them really is just you creating this weight. They can be solved. There are people, whether it's right? You can call and get support, psychological support, your counselor, your HR department, your boss, your loved ones, your wife, your spouse, use term spouse, husband, wife, whatever, spouse. There's support out there. And so that's really what I want to sort of leave people with when they're if I was anything I could leave them with is that you have you can get through this no matter what it happens to be, and there are people out there who are there to help you. So never be coy about asking for help. There maybe someone will say no, but there are a lot of people who want to help you.
Yeah, so reach out.
And you being a coach, I thought I'd say that, a little plug for you as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, exactly. So thank you so much, Henry. We'll have all of your website, your YouTube channel, so people can, all of the details will be down below.
Okay.
You can subscribe.
Yeah.
Write 5-star reviews, all of those things.
Like, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Press all the buttons. Give us all the love.
All
the buttons. Go wild, but don't press it twice because then it comes off.
Yes.
Just once for each one. And 5-star reviews only. It was great to have you here, and thank you for sharing so openly and honestly. I love that we talked about a topic which you don't often talk about in interviews. So
no one ever asks me.
Yeah, well, there you go. It's a great question to ask. What would you like to talk about? It's such a rich life as well.
I hope it was useful, though. I know I've listened to a lot of your podcast, and I didn't want to, I didn't want to hijack the conversation. Hopefully,
I got so many gems, and I think that our listeners will be like, whether this is something which is happening right in their life right now, or they can see what the applications are. So it was an absolute pleasure. And I look forward to listening to the transcript. I can't wait.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Take care.
Bye.